escape does the narcissist think about you? You have escaped the narcissist. Well done. You have got out. Of course, now you need to stay out, but that's something else. You have got away from the narcissist. Where you end the relationship with the narcissist, this is called the escape. If you were the intimate partner primary source, you have called time on the relationship. You have moved out. You have decided that the relationship is at an end. You might instigate divorce proceedings where it's marriage. But the former relationship has been brought to a conclusion. If you are an intimate partner secondary source of a shelf variety or the dirty little secret, you have decided that you will tolerate no longer being picked up and put down, taken off that shelf and placed back on it. It's over. Whether you're a friend, a family member, colleague, neighbour, you've decided that you are no longer going to interact with the narcissist. Utilising my work, you now impose total no contact so that you stay out of those 5 arenas of interaction. But what is the response of the narcissist to this? Is the narcissist now thinking about you where you have escaped? Oh yes. Where you are the intimate partner primary source and you call time on the relationship, the narcissist will be very much thinking about you. This is because what you have done is sustain a most violent and awful act of wounding against the narcissist. Not only have you had the audacity to be the one to assert control over the narcissist by ending the relationship, you, as the primary source, have torn out a significant and substantial aspect of the narcissist's prime aims. For instance, if you are the intimate partner prime source of a lesser narcissist, you are likely to contribute upwards of 80%, maybe closer to 90% of the provision of the prime aims for that narcissist. Fuel, character traits, residual benefits, all bound up within the control. Where you're mid-ranger, 70% and above. Where you're involved with the greater, 50% and above. As you can ascertain, therefore, where you are the prime source, or rather the intimate partner primary source of the narcissist, and most of you will be dealing with lesser or mid-range narcissists, when you escape, you cause a massive problem to the narcissist. Not only have you wounded the narcissist by what you have done, but it is akin to switching off the main provider of electricity to a nation. You can cause the narcissist to plummet towards fuel crisis. And if you want to understand what happens when there are changes to the narcissist fuel matrix as a consequence of behaviours such as this, then do access from the video description the logic bulletin changes to the narcissist fuel matrix. You will find that very interesting indeed and helpful to understand further behaviours. But this video focuses upon what is the narcissist thinking about with regard to you. Are you entering the narcissist's thoughts? And you will be. What you have done is commit an act of treason, and therefore that means that in almost all instances the narcissist will blitzkrieg you with the initial ground hoover, a frenzied attempt to bring you back under control, whether it is through the imposition of physical violence, coming around and kicking your door in and literally dragging you back home, lesser, particularly lower lesser and middle lesser, whether it's calling you up and pleading, crying, begging you to return, mid-range narcissist, before turning on to some degree of charm as well, and then utilising threat, or whether it's the greater, contact you and say, now, what's all this nonsense about? Let's sit down and sort all of this out. You will be thought about by the narcissist. The narcissist wants you back, not only because we have to assert control over you, but to plug you back into the fuel matrix. In some instances, if you have escaped at the beginning of your devaluation, it's highly unlikely that the narcissist will have an immediate replacement available, and therefore the narcissist will focus on trying to draw you back in. Where your escape occurs closer to the potential disengagement of you by the narcissist, or during sustained devaluation, the narcissist is more likely to have a replacement being cultivated, indeed almost at the point of transition, and therefore you might not even get an initial ground hoover, or if you do, it's short-lived, And if it fails, the narcissist will install the replacement sooner and place them within the fuel matrix. So in the immediate aftermath of your escape, where you are the intimate partner primary source, then the narcissist will have you on their mind. You will be in the mind of the narcissist with almost, even if you're not doing anything towards the narcissist because you're in a no-contact situation, you will keep popping into the narcissist's mind. And of course, the narcissist is going to be reminded of you repeatedly. For instance, if the narcissist is still in the home that you've left, there'll be all the reminders of you being there, the fact that this was the house that you shared with the narcissist. Friends and family may well make mention of you. What has happened? Where are you? Can they help? And the narcissist will have a preoccupation with you anyway, because it will more than likely create a fuel obsession on the part of the narcissist. So you will keep entering the sixth sphere of influence, because the narcissist will be reminded of you, other people will remind the narcissist of you, and you will keep going to the mind of the narcissist as a repeated thought. All of this amounts to Hoover triggers, and this will cause the narcissist to keep trying to hoover you to get you back in, which is all part of the initial grand hoover. If such actions fail, and you resist the initial grand hoover, then the narcissist will be forced to go elsewhere and find a replacement, perhaps promote a family member to become a non-intimate partner primary source, or promote the existing intimate partner secondary source of a shelf variety that was being interacted with. When that happens, the narcissist with the new primary source reverts to the situation as if you had been disengaged from. The narcissist is focused on their new toy, and you become forgotten about. And the principles that are explained in the video, disengagement, does the narcissist think about you, apply. However, in some instances, and this tends to be with upper echelon narcissists, middle mid-range, upper mid-range, lower greater, middle greater, upper greater, and the ultra, your treachery has not been forgotten. Of course, when you're disengaged from, you're treacherous, but that was the decision of the narcissist to get rid. You're damaged goods, you're a malfunctioning appliance, we're better off without you, and we focus on the new shiny appliance. And unless you have the misfortune to be on the receiving end of a malice campaign, most of the time the narcissist isn't thinking about you and wants nothing more to do with you. However, in certain instances where you escaped, although the narcissist has moved on to somebody else, there may still be, because of malice, the desire to assert control over you and punish you for your heinous act, even though the narcissist has got a replacement and that has been put in place. Once the initial hoover has passed and has failed, there is a possibility that the narcissist will still continue to lash out at you. In that instance, this is because a malice campaign has been activated. These are unusual and they are rare, but they can occur. And a malice campaign is highly unusual where you've been disengaged from, because essentially we don't want anything more to do with you because you are a malfunctioned and broken appliance in effect. That's why we got rid of you. But where you have escaped us and forced the narcissist to replace you, with certain narcissists, not all, there remains the possibility that a malice campaign will be utilized against you. And if you want to understand more about that, go to the Knowledge Vault using the link in the menu about understanding the malice campaign. I would emphasize they are rare, and it's usually the case that the narcissist will be focused on the new primary source and therefore will not be thinking about you. If you do happen to come into the narcissist's thoughts when it's moved to this stage of you being replaced, the narcissist is most likely to assert control over you by smearing or just by rejecting the thought of you. You enter the narcissist's head and they either smear you or they reject your presence. And that allows the narcissist, as part of the three assertions of control, to assert control over you even though you don't hear anything further. Remember, with less from mid-range this happens unconsciously, with greater and ultra this happens consciously. So the dynamic where you escape with an intimate partner primary source is that where you escape, the immediate aftermath is that you are very much in the thoughts of the narcissist as he or she scrambles to draw you back in. where you stay out of the spheres of influence by not texting, not ringing, you will still be in the sixth sphere over and over again as a consequence of the narcissist being reminded of you by other people, by seeing things, smelling things, hearing things appertaining to you, and of course having the repeated thoughts about your departure. If that initial Grand Hoover doesn't drag you back in and the narcissist is forced to replace you with somebody else, usually it then reverts to the similar position as if you had been disengaged. And although the narcissist may well think about you intermittently, you are unlikely to hear from the narcissist at that juncture while they're in the golden period with the new IPPS. However, it is in this instance that there is a greater possibility, albeit still that it's rare, for you to be on the receiving end of a malice campaign from the narcissist. And that is the dynamic for the intimate partner primary source. What about if you're the intimate partner secondary source and you escape? Is the narcissist thinking about you? Well, the first point to make there is that if you escape whilst you're on the shelf, the narcissist might not even notice that you've gone. And it is only when the narcissist attempts to hoover you off the shelf and realise that they cannot, because numbers are blocked, you've disappeared, you're not answering calls, you're not responding to messages, and you're not answering the door, then at that juncture the narcissist realises that there is a problem. At that stage, the narcissist will be thinking of you quite clearly because they've already thought about you to come and hoover you. And where you are not responding to the hoover, that threatens the narcissist's control, which means that you will stay in the mind of the narcissist as he attempts to try and bring you under control. If it cannot be done directly, then the narcissism will shift to indirect or then withdrawal. And the narcissist will move on and deal with an alternative secondary source. What will happen thereafter? Well, the narcissist may, dependent on whether there is a hoover trigger, try and hoover you again. You will not be the main focus of the narcissist's thoughts. The narcissist will not be obsessing about you, but rather, so long as you stay away from the narcissist and you're not texting, you're not messaging, you're not ringing the narcissist up, in those circumstances, the narcissist again will only be thinking of you by virtue of a random thought, they're reminded of you, or somebody mentions you to the narcissist. That amounts to a hoover trigger, and if the hoover execution criteria are met, the narcissist will have another go and try and hoover you. If they are not met, then the narcissist will assert control over you by smearing you or by just dismissing you. But you will not be a preoccupation, and you will not be on the receiving end of a malice campaign in such circumstances. You're not important enough. And those considerations are also applicable to the dirty little secret. What about if you're a non-intimate secondary source, where you've essentially put the foot down and said, that's it, I'm calling time on the relationship, colleague, friend, family member, neighbour? Again, the narcissist may not notice because it will still be a shelf dynamic with this non-intimate secondary source. And therefore, not noticing that you have gone, you're not on the mind of the narcissist. Of course, when you do come into the narcissist's mind, you cause a hoover trigger, and if the hoover execution criteria have been met, the narcissist then looks to hoover you off the shelf but finds that he or she can't because you've gone, you have escaped. Again, similar to the situation involving an intimate partner secondary source, the narcissist will attempt to hoover you back, but if he or she can't, they will be forced to withdraw and they will focus on other aspects of the fuel matrix. There will not be an obsession to draw you back in. There might be a further hoover trigger, in which case they'll try again in the future, but they are not hell-bent on your destruction. There will be no malice campaign. And the reason for this dynamic with secondary sources is there are numerous of you in the fuel matrix. So if we can't access one, we will try, of course, at first, and when we find that we can't, we'll try a few more times. But then, because the narcissism will be forced to cause the narcissist to withdraw in order to assert control over you, the narcissist will then just turn to a different secondary source because there are lots of them. Indeed, a new one might be cultivated to replace you. And in effect, the narcissist then decides that you're disengaged from. Remember, from our perspective, it's all about how we assert control over you. And indeed, in such circumstances, be aware that whether you're the intimate partner primary source, a secondary source, either intimate or non-intimate, the narcissist is likely, even when you have escaped, to go around suggesting that they are the one that has ended the relationship, if that suits the narcissist's purposes for asserting control, and especially with regard to the maintenance of the facade. Accordingly, in the situation where you escape the narcissist and you ask, is the narcissist thinking about you? With the primary source, it's very much a yes, and that will continue during the initial Grand Hoover. Thereafter, It will revert to the position as if you've been disengaged from save, where there is a malice campaign. With the secondary source, you will not necessarily be thought of immediately when you escape, because the narcissist might not even realise this has happened. And of course, what you mustn't be doing in any of this is tipping off the narcissist that you're about to go, because that will result in a preventative hoover and may halt your escape. But where you're the secondary source, once the narcissist realises that there is a problem, there will be a number of hoovers to try and get you back in. If they fail, the narcissist will be forced to withdraw, and thereafter will only think about you as a consequence of being reminded of you by a person or a thing, or happening to just think about you. And the chances of you being hoovered depend upon whether the hoover execution criteria have been met, but it's less likely so, and you won't receive a malice campaign because you're not as important as the primary source. And that is the position with regard to escape and whether the narcissist thinks about you. Thank you for listening. I'm H.G. Tudor.